Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Tony. Woo.
Hello and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. I have an incredible guest. I know we say it every week, but I really do love the guests that come on the show. I have Craig Goldberg here. He is the president and co-founder of InHarmony Interactive, and we are talking all about mindfulness, meditation, sound healing, vibrations, all the things that literally have been lighting me up these days. And I'm beyond excited to be able to go deeper because my knowledge base is pretty limited in the area. So I'm super excited to have an expert here to talk a little bit more about it. So welcome, Craig, to the Tips with Tony podcast.
Thank you so much, Tony. Appreciate you having me. Let's dive deep. We started to cover so many different topics before we click record. So I'm excited to start at the beginning and finish wherever we finish, and let's push the limits on that hard stop you have.
Yeah, definitely. Amazing. Okay. So first question, it's always a 3-part question. Feel free to go as deep as you want or need. I would love for you to share with the listeners who you are, what you do, and most importantly, why you do what you do.
Awesome. I appreciate that. So I'm originally from Long Island, like some other people on this podcast as well.
Not just Long Island. The fact they were both from Syosset is so weird. For those of you who listened to last week's episode, the guest went to Oneonta, was a dietetics major like me. Like, what?
So I was born in New Hyde Park, and then in second grade, not even second grade. In preschool, we moved out to Syosset and Hidden Ridge, right at the end of 135. I'm sure you know exactly where that's at, not far from San Quam. And it was nice to drop down and go through that little memory lane. So originally from Long Island in New York, I moved out to ultimately to California with my now wife. I've been together with her for 15 years. I have a beautiful 2.5-year-old daughter. Gosh, she's almost 3 at this point. Super opinionated and running around the house, telling everybody what to do. It's the most incredible and cutest thing I've ever seen. And, my story actually, I think, starts a lot like a lot of people's story. And that is about 10 years ago, my wife got sick, and doc after doc, nobody could tell us what was wrong. What do you start to do? Well, you hit up Dr. Google and you start digging in and doing your own research. And doc after doc, test after test, nobody could tell us what was wrong. In the end, wound up being gluten. We pulled gluten away from her diet 100%. And within 72 hours, all of her symptoms went away. Just because I think it's relative to your audience, I'm going to share the symptoms. I don't often, but I'm going to share those symptoms. So my wife is Mediterranean. She's originally from Turkey. She was born there. She moved here when she was 9. Her diet is super Turkish, Mediterranean. She eats a lot of pasta. She eats bread with just about every meal. At the time, this was 10 years ago, I was in my early 30s. I was drinking a lot of alcohol, and one of that was a beer. And her symptoms were she was getting pimples and cysts on her face and on her body. She has beautiful olive skin. She's got gorgeous skin tone. And all of a sudden, she's getting these pimples, and we couldn't figure out where that was coming from. All of her lymph nodes from the waist up were swollen. We have close to 500 lymph nodes in our body. So 250 or 260 or so are above the waist. They were all swollen, not just the ones in the neck, but behind the ear, behind the back, like these major bumps that we couldn't figure out why. And the most peculiar was every Saturday around 3:00 in the afternoon, she would lose her voice. No joke.
Interesting.
Okay, so that wound up being the cue that tipped us off, because we were at Burning Man. We were hanging out with a friend of ours, and Ipek had lost her voice. And I'll tell you why and how this all comes full circle. And our friend Roxy was like, "You lost your voice?" And she goes, "Didn't you lose your voice when I saw you so-and-so?" And she was like, "Yeah." I mean, literally, she would like talk like this. And she goes, "Yeah." And she goes, Ipek had a beer in her hand, and she goes, "Cut gluten out of your diet. You'll stop losing your voice." And Roxy had gone through the same thing. So we were young, not that there's anything wrong with drinking alcohol, but I choose not to drink alcohol anymore. And at this particular time in our life, I was drinking a lot of alcohol. I had a beer in my hand from Thursday happy hour until Sunday afternoon. Not constantly, but more or less, we would just always be kind of just slow drinking a Bud Light or something like that. There's gluten in beer. So it was this gradual increase from Thursday to Saturday afternoon where the gluten sensitivity for my wife built up so much. And eventually she had an inflammatory response to the gluten. And that was what tuned us up. Now, keyed us in. In addition to that, we were eating a lot of bread, we were eating a lot of gluten, and we were eating a lot of pasta. It was just this perfect storm. And literally, as soon as we cut it out, all of the lymph nodes swelling went down. All of the cysts practically disappeared overnight on the third night. And she stopped losing her voice. This was absolutely remarkable to me. So I immediately gave up gluten, 100%. Me and my wife, whole house went gluten-free. This was 10 years ago, before we had all these amazing gluten-free options. It was literally 2 columns. That was a gluten-free section in the supermarket. And I remember it being relatively difficult. I also remember my wife being in complete denial. I was like, maybe it's gluten. And I was talking to the doctors about it. And they were like, no, it can't be gluten. It couldn't be this, couldn't be that. Must be this, must be that, whatever. And when I told Ipek, like my wife, I was like, let's see if it's gluten. Let's cut it out. She was like, no, it can't be that. And then when it worked 72 hours later, she was like, no, it's not gluten. It's this new steroid cream that I'm getting from my dermatologist. And it's this. And I was like, well, it's really easy. Just have some gluten and see if the symptoms come back. And sure enough, as soon as she ate it, like literally a half hour later, her lymph nodes started swelling again. And her voice, like it was kind of hysterical and really just interesting. So this led to us obviously going gluten-free. The next 6 months of our lives, remember, this is almost 10 years ago, my wife gets better day in and day out, and I get worse day in and day out. And I can't figure out why. For the next 6 months, actually for the next 9 months, I continue to have a low-grade fever, a cough that just won't go away, mucus buildup that would come and go from my nose. I'm talking like a runny nose. And I never really felt under the weather. I never really fought things off. I never really got sick. I know a lot of people say that, but I would get knocked down for the flu once a year, whatever, but never really. I was always really healthy. And I'm laying in bed one morning. I won't forget. It was 2014. We were planning our weddings. And I'm sitting in bed and I'm just doing research, like I do, taking keywords and searching the keywords and, diving down these 15 tabs I have open on my phone. And I'm looking at gluten sensitivity and the immune system and over and over and over again, genetically modified food keeps coming up. And I didn't really know how they genetically modify food. So I start searching and figuring that out. You've looked into that, I'm sure. Have you talked about this? I know you're muted and you're moving your camera, but anyway.
Sorry, my cat, of course, she always loves to bother at the right time.
I love it. She just wants some attention. That's all.
Too much attention. You open the door, you close the door. It's like a baby. My sister's dog does the same thing. They're just so needy, these pets.
I should introduce you to my daughter. You want to see needy. So, have you dove down into the depths of genetically modified food with your listeners?
Yeah. Well, so that's something, you have to remember, like with there's so many things I can say about that. How do I want to go about this? When it comes to eating fruits and veggies versus not eating fruits and veggies, you're better off eating fruits and veggies, whether it's genetically modified or not. So in that situation, that's not usually somewhere where I like to kind of go, because I feel like more people are already stressing about what to eat, that to add more food fear, it's just really not helpful because it's really insignificant towards the end of it. Now, if you have a specific symptom and there's things going on, that's very different. But just for like general health, it really doesn't matter if your fruit or vegetable is genetically modified or not. Like the health benefits, the vitamins, the minerals, the fiber, the water, all the other things that you're going to get are going to be significantly better than, not eating the fruit or the vegetable.
Super good with that answer. So I start to dive down this rabbit hole of learning and understanding genetically modified food. And we make some pretty dramatic changes. We basically start to look at these 3 main environments: what we put in our mouth, what we put on our skin, and what we allow to be kept in the air around us. And me and my wife are pretty hardcore. We go zero, just all organic. We clean and cleanse everything. We're super conscious of it all. And we began to feel better. Both of us did. And it was really remarkable. I gave up cologne, perfume, deodorant, because it all had chemicals in it that didn't cross that didn't pass our test. And this eventually led to me and my wife learning about essential oils, and then traveling around the world, teaching, training, and educating about the efficacy of essential oils, where they come from, how they're useful, how we can use them day in and day out. And inevitably, we're going to these yoga festivals and trade shows and conferences, and we're speaking on big stages, teaching people about essential oils. And everywhere I went, there was these sound healings there. So I would go and I would sit in front of these sound bowls, and I didn't know what was so amazing about it at the time. I was just enamored with the way that I felt. I would literally lay down, they would crack one of those bowls, I would fall asleep, I'd wake up 45 minutes later and I'd feel amazing. And that was good enough for me. But I'm an audiophile. I like good music, and I like things when I want things, right? I'm from New York. I'm from Long Island. Like, I want it when I want it. And I didn't want to buy the bowls and go through the training. I instead bought a Gong CD, went home, took my stereo system, starfished out in the middle of my living room, put my center channel in between my legs, my right and my left, my rear right, my rear left. And I'm just cranking a CD. And I'm trying to get this sound healing on tap, trying to get it when I want it. And I was using the wrong technology. About 3 months after that experience, I get introduced to my now business partner, Dominic Carnevale, who had created this piece of technology called the Sound Lounge. And he said, I think you need to come down to my office and try my Sound Lounge. And I go, I don't know what that is. And he goes, I'm just told through mutual friends that you're really going to like it. And sure enough, I went down there, and turns out I was using the wrong technology. The technology I wanted to be using is this, called a tactile transducer, just a fancy word for half of a speaker. You grew up on Long Island, so you know what I'm talking about. You ever had a friend with a sound system in his trunk of his car?
Yes.
What we see in those speakers is the cone. And it's basically the way a speaker works. Most people don't know this. There's a magnet inside a driver behind that cone. And that's usually what's coming up off of this. And that driver, that magnet, moves up and down. It moves the cone. The cone moves the air. The air molecules knock into each other until they collide with you or your ear, which really just picks up in the changes of pressure. And your brain then converts that into sound. And that's how we perceive sound. It's why when you go to a concert and you're standing in front of a stack of speakers, you can feel that kick drum hit your chest. That's because all of the air molecules are colliding with each other until they hit you. And that's what you're perceiving is that punch from that kick drum. So I became enamored with sound and frequency. And then I began to study the impact of frequency and sound on our physiology. And this is where I think we get to the kind of crux of all of your questions, because I became enamored with the influence that sound and frequency has on our neurology, our anatomy, and our physiology. And that's been the depth of my study for the last 6 years has really been on how can we influence positively our physiology and our neurology using sound and frequency. And then that whole thing drifted into mindful meditation and understanding what's happening in the brain. And there's a lot of different rabbit holes we can dive in from there.
I love it. Okay, let's go down the rabbit hole of the sound healing, because it's actually something I haven't gotten into. So many questions. So I guess before we go into that, can you just talk about the difference between like the parasympathetic? I never can say these right.
Sympathetic and parasympathetic.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can you just talk about the differences between those and kind of why we want to be in one state rather than the other? And then we'll talk about like techniques to how to kind of get into this.
Totally. So look, most humans are walking around today in a sympathetic nervous system response all day long. Mm-hmm. And this is unbelievably detrimental to our health. Not just weight, diet, and nutrition, but also our immunity and our ability to fight off infection. And really our ability to simply have a good day is completely pushed off when you're in a sympathetic nervous system response. And we'll talk about this. So you want to say something? I
wanted to actually comment on people's perception of a good day is like super productive. Like they got all their stuff done. Like they were, almost like their perception of a good day, I think, is a stress day. Like,
sure.
Like, you know what I mean?
Well,
like,
I'll define my, to that point, right? I'll define my good day. My good day could be spending a day with my daughter, relaxed and chill outside, doing something exciting. Maybe I'm on Mount Charleston. Maybe I'm out for a hike. Maybe I'm on the Strip, whatever, right? I'm here in Vegas. A good day could be sitting at this desk cranking all day and just knocking things out and getting them done. Yeah. Sometimes that comes with stress. Most of the time it doesn't. I'm super passionate around what I do, as I'm sure you're picking up on. And I'm certainly picking up on the fact that you're passionate around what you do. For me, I could sit down and do this all day, where I'll sit down at my desk at 8 o'clock in the morning and I'll look up and it's 6 p.m. and I'm like, I don't think I've gotten up. I don't think
Yeah.
I've drank anything except water. Like,
Yeah.
I got to step away from the electromagnetic energy and I just got to go outside, right? But that to me is not necessarily a stressful day. I'm talking about, all right, so sympathetic and parasympathetic, big words, right? But sympathetic is associated with fight or flight. It's also associated with stress and anxiety. Parasympathetic is associated with cool, calm, and relaxed. I think of the Fonzie every time I say parasympathetic, right? The Fonz is just cool. He's just chill. He's just relaxed. And that's parasympathetic. We're designed to move in and out of sympathetic and parasympathetic throughout the day as needed. However, sympathetic nervous system response is an automatic nervous system response based on your environment. And it is triggered through a part of the brain that is right at the top of the spinal cord. And it's a part of the reptilian brain. It's one of the oldest parts of our brain and the earliest development. And it's really designed for safety. That fight or flight response is designed to kick in when you feel unsafe, when your life is threatened. And it was developed way back in the day when we were sleeping outside and sleeping in caves. And I'll give you two great examples of this. So picture this: you're sleeping in a cave, your wife and daughter, your family, your husband, whatever is sleeping in the cave with you. And all of a sudden you hear a crack of a branch outside. Okay. That means there's a predator outside. Your sympathetic nervous system response is designed to kick cortisol and adrenaline into your bloodstream. So you go from sleeping to high alert. The cortisol brings you unbelievably present into the current moment. The adrenaline floods the major muscle groups with oxygen and nutrients so that you can, and diverts energy from more expensive and non-essential energetic responses in the body, like rational thinking and digestion and immunity. And it diverts all of that energy into the major muscle groups, particularly quads, hamstrings, biceps, triceps, back, and chest, so that you can fight or you can run, fight or flight, right? This is fine if you're sleeping in a cave and you hear that stick crack and you need to be on high alert. It's not okay if you're driving to work and all of a sudden you hit traffic because this guy in front of you ran off the road, now has a flat tire and you can't get past him and you don't know how long you're going to be here and you've got an appointment with, to record this podcast and you got to go. Right. Or another great worldly example is because this just happened to me a few weeks ago. I was literally getting ready to go on a Southwest flight. If you've ever flown Southwest, there are no seat assignments. You just have your number.
I heard recently the delays have been insane.
Nightmare, right?
Yeah.
Nightmare. It's all past them, whatever. But I was literally, the gate was like, I don't know, 200 feet that way. I was like, let me just get a quick healthy snack real quick because there's not going to be anything on the plane, right? So I went over, there's nobody there. I pick out my healthy snacks and I'm getting ready to check out. And this gal somehow got in front of me. I don't know where she came from, but she's getting ready to check out. She must have tried this debit card 10 times, like putting in the 4-digit code. And I'm just watching them, like my number is coming up, my number is going, they're boarding my number. And and I just took a deep breath and I wanted the snacks because I was hungry and I didn't want to sacrifice, whatever I was going to do. And I just went, and I just took a deep breath and I just showered her with some love and affection. Now that's me today. Me 6 years ago, I would have been trying her to put in a code. I would have been offering to buy it for her. I would I'll just take care. Just put it on my bill, right? I just got it. It's that sympathetic nervous system response that starts to kick in. Now, that sympathetic nervous system response is supposed to trigger in a life-saving environment. That's not useful when it's triggering for all the wrong reasons. And I know a lot of your listeners can relate to the story that I just shared because we've all been there. Yeah. Right? We've all had road rage where that road rage is your sympathetic nervous system response kicking into high gear. Now, I started to talk about this a little bit. Here's what happens when you're in a sympathetic nervous system response. And again, it's automatic, but you can train it. The first, the cortisol and the adrenaline. The second, your brain turns off rational thinking. So you think you're making decisions, but you're not making rational decisions. You're not being rational about those decisions, which generally means you're falling deeper into a rabbit hole of that negativity of what could go wrong instead of rationally thinking about this and going, this really isn't that big of a deal. Just take a deep breath and move on. The third thing is your body turns off digestion. So it doesn't matter how healthy, how organic, how clean, what you're eating, how many supplements you're taking, you're not digesting your food. And third, turns off your immune system because you're not fighting off bacteria. You just need to fight what's going off in front of you. So when we're walking around in a sympathetic nervous system response all day long, we are ill-equipped to handle the day-to-day trials and tribulations that we are presented with. And therefore, since we don't have rational thinking, we immediately start making worse decisions. We're not thinking rational.
And then it's a cycle.
Well, think about it just as it pertains to food, right? If you're stressed and anxious, you're going to stop for that slice of pizza in a heartbeat. If you're stressed and anxious, the fries aren't so bad. I'll just get the fries, even though we know fries are, you use seed oils and it's not good. And right? Like, okay, cool. But you start making these decisions and then you justify it to yourself and you think you're making a good decision and you're not. And oh, by the way, it doesn't matter because digestion's turned off. So you're just coming in and depending on how much, depending on what's happening in your body just starts storing fat or excess fat. Like there's this domino effect, particularly when it comes to diet and nutrition, when you're walking around in a sympathetic nervous system response for the wrong reasons. If it's the right reasons, and I use this example a lot, you're walking on the strip, it's late at night, you're coming out of a bar, you're on your way home to a cab or whatever, and all of a sudden this creepy guy starts getting closer and closer to you, and all of a sudden your spidey sense starts to go off. You start to feel a little bit more alert. You start to be like looking over your shoulder. Again, that's what it was designed for. And you will drift in and out of that relatively quickly as soon as that threat is neutralized, as soon as it goes away and you get in your Uber, your Lyft, your cab, whatever, and you're now safe, your body will begin to trigger the chemical cascades to drift back into parasympathetic. But if you're not giving your body the ability to relax or to kick in those chemical cascades because there's a threat that's not there, it's not real, and something in your head, which by the way can absolutely impact this as well, then all of a sudden you're going to sit in that sympathetic nervous system response for hours on end. And again, adrenaline and cortisol, not making good decisions, not digesting food, your immune system's off. It just sets you up for failure, not to mention the fact that you get fatigued easier. You're not making good decisions, worse. It just gets worse and worse and worse and worse as you spend more and more time in that sympathetic nervous system response. So sound therapy, meditation, mindfulness, all of the tech and the things that we do with our app and music meditations, this is all designed to reset your nervous system and to kick in those positive chemical cascades that bring you back into a parasympathetic nervous system response.
So amazing. And we need to do one now because I'm going to kill my cat. Just so you know, I'm really in the sympathetic nervous system right now
we can
because she is.
Let's do some breath work with your cat.
Extra today. Like I gave you a warning before, but it wasn't supposed to be this bad.
All right. My voice has a certain effect on animals, by the way.
It does it? Is that true?
They tend to get a little excited and riled up around me.
She's psycho right now. Okay.
I could have told you I have that effect on.
First of all, I really do need something just to calm myself.
Sure.
But I definitely, and that's the thing. It's hard to even think clearly when you're getting disrupted and disturbed. And so I do want to talk about it because I feel like there's certain sounds that really trigger me. And I'm curious if there's like a reason behind that. Like I know I did grow up in a very loud, chaotic household, like screaming, yelling. Really? Yeah, I know. We'd be surprised, right? Behind the, the beautiful brick house and
they're all loud and obnoxious. My family's unbelievably obnoxious. I love them all. I can't wait for them to visit, but they're loud.
Yeah. Well, there wasn't even, that's the other thing too. Like, it was chaotic in the sense of like there was always yelling, screaming, and fighting. But then also like when just like the Greeks and Italians get together, even in like the time of just like celebration, it's so loud. Like people scream to talk in a nice way. They're talking to each other, but people they're screaming at each other.
I'm Jewish. It's the same with the Jews and the Italians, right? Yeah. Not to bring this in, but like, look, it's the same way. We get trained. We are constant. So our brain is constantly learning. We're either teaching it good patterns or it's picking up on the bad patterns that we're just doing. Because if you're not intentional around what you're doing and how you're doing it, then you're just you're just being wild about it, right? Almost reckless. Mm-hmm. And your brain picks up on those patterns. And we are pattern recognition beings. That's what we do. and I give these examples a lot. When you get out of the pool or you get out of the shower, I bet, and you've never thought about this, but I bet you dry yourself off the same way. You put the towel on the same place. I go on my head, I dry my head, I come over my face, I go around back. You don't even think about it, right?
Yeah.
You brush your teeth, you start in the same corridor of your teeth and you work your way around and then up and around. You might start down here, I start down here, you might start up here, whatever, but you start in the same place and finish in the same place every time. We're constantly looking for these patterns. Screaming and having a conversation, like some of my friends on Long Island that I could literally hear in my house when they're in their house next door talking, I could hear them clearly. I know exactly what they're talking about. It's something that you get, it's normalized for you.
Yeah.
Now, what we don't realize is that our nervous system is tuning to that frequency. You started this question off by saying there's certain frequencies that trigger you. You used a word that I think is really important in this day and age because it gets used an awful lot. And I don't know if people really understand exactly what it means. To be triggered is to be triggering a sympathetic nervous system response, right? Oh, wow. When my wife does that, man, it just eats me. Even just doing that, I notice my body getting tense and tight. I'm telling my nervous system to get excited, to get riled up. I'm telling it to get prepared for something. I'm triggering that sympathetic nervous system response. Could be because your mom said that thing again, or that she won't leave you alone about, right? Like me and my wife, we got engaged and they wouldn't stop asking us when the wedding was. And then we got married and they wouldn't stop asking us when we were going to have a child. And Mom, I hope you're watching this. I love you. But it stressed us out, right? Like we were engaged for a while. In fact, I was with my wife for like 6 years before we got engaged. You had to see what that was like with my parents, right? Wow. When are you going to ask her, Craig? When are you going to ask her, Craig? And I'm like, I'm taking my time. All right. Yeah. I know when it's right. So our brain can impact, not just the external environment can impact it, but so too can our thoughts. So too can the perception of our reaction to the things that are happening around us. And it is so easy for our brain to trigger that sympathetic nervous system response because it's a fight or flight response, because it's a reaction and it's a life-saving technique for your body. So your body is very quick to trigger it, actually. And again, it's just really detrimental specifically to diet and nutrition. And having the right tools to reset the nervous system in a parasympathetic is key. Look, breath work is great. We're going to talk about, maybe now's a good time to talk about my app and the music that we offer and an offer that we have for your listeners. So, so my company's called InHarmony Interactive. We do two things. We make hardware. I wish I could actually show you. So we make hardware, meditation cushions, something called the InHarmony Practitioner, and something called the InHarmony Sound Lounge. And I'm just going to choose a couple of virtual backgrounds here. So this is our meditation cushion. So if you're watching the recording, you can see the InHarmony meditation cushion. Is it over here? Or is it over here?
It's on your, my left, your right.
Yeah, because I've.
But actually, you're motivating me. I'm gonna have to get this recording on YouTube.
Cool. So let's do that. So behind me, what you'll see is the InHarmony meditation cushion. He is sitting on the meditation cushion. There's an amplifier inside there. There's actually 2 tactile transducers that are now sitting underneath him, which you can't see because there it is. There's 2 tactile transducers that's underneath his root, and those vibrations are going up through his entire body, and he's hearing the same sounds that he's feeling with his body. This creates a 3-dimensional, fully immersive experience. So we make the InHarmony meditation cushion. We make the Sound Lounge, which is designed to lay on. There's 4 tactile transducers in there, and then we also make a practitioner. If you do body work, you can add this to your massage table and augment your body work with vibroacoustic therapy or vibration therapy or sound therapy. And again, when you're hearing the same frequencies that you're feeling, it creates this 3-dimensional, fully immersive experience that makes you feel as though you're inside the music. It's great if you're listening to Elton John or Billy Joel or rock and roll or reggae or hip hop or house music, whatever your music is, we will give you the most amazing experience, and music moves people. But the reality is, as you start to look at vibroacoustic therapy, the formal body of research that kind of governs what we do, it's all about specific frequencies and sequences against the body and what impact that has on our physiology and our nervous system. So just putting on Britney Spears or Katy Perry or whatever it is that you're into, not you, but whoever's listening, right? when your track comes on, when your song comes on, if you love country and that Jimmy, and that I don't really know any of the country artists, but Kesney, whatever.
We're from Long Island. Sorry, guys.
Right?
We don't know country.
Whatever, right? But when that track comes on and it's your track, you feel amazing. The windows go down. You start singing out loud. You don't give a who's watching. You're just like, it's on. That actually hits the chemical cascades that bring you into a parasympathetic nervous system response. Not always convenient, but there are other frequencies. It's why we jam out when we go to the gym. Not only do we have endorphins and other things, dopamine and these different things flowing, but when we listen to music, it moves us and it hits the limbic system in the body, which is a subset of our nervous system. And it starts to trigger these chemical cascades that move us into a parasympathetic nervous system response. So in addition to the hardware that we manufacture, we also have our app, and our app drives the music. I don't have a slide for that, but it's available on iOS and Android. It's $8 a month. It's $80 a year. And we have a free gift. If you were to just download our app in the App Store, you get 14-day trial, full featured, all the music, everything's available. For your listeners, we're going to create a landing page. We'll put it down at the bottom of this, or we'll put it in the show notes. I am InHarmony.com/pages/ I think, what did we say we were going to make it?
I think we said Tips with Tony.
Tips with Tony it is. So, and again, we'll put a link down below. You'll get 5% off our products, and you'll also get a free 90-day trial of our app. I highly recommend this. Our music is phenomenal. You don't need to buy our tech in order to experience. Think of our tech as a delivery system directly to the body. Mm-hmm. I will say this, and I don't want to make any claims, but I can't even tell you how many times my Sound Lounge and practitioner owners call me and tell me that they're losing weight and they don't know why, just from spending time around the tech every single day. Mm-hmm. I mean, our practitioners and clinicians, literally inches coming off their waist, because once your nervous system is being stimulated with these frequencies, your body begins to operate the way it was designed to operate. And when you start to sleep better, and you start to nap better, and you start to enjoy life better by dropping into a meditative state. And what our tech and our music does is it takes you into that meditative state automatically. So the sound and the frequency guides every cell in your body to that relaxed state. Now, as my daughter is literally screaming, la, 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 right outside my door, the outside world doesn't change, right? So this is really important. Those stimuli are still there, and those triggers are still there. But when you use our tech and you use our app and you're listening to our music, say 11 minutes in the morning, 11 minutes if you need it in the afternoon, 11 minutes at night, or just once a day, you're training your nervous system to spend more time in parasympathetic, to be less triggered, to trigger slower into that sympathetic nervous system response. Now, here's the cool part. You're not turning it off. You're just teaching your brain to spend more time cool, calm, and collected like the Fonz.
Right.
If that threatening situation comes about, you can still go from 0 to 60 real quick.
Right.
And believe you me, gosh, this guy cut me off. And not only did he cut me off, but then he started to slow down. There was nobody else on the road, and he's just in front of me doing 30. I was doing 45. It was a 40-mile-an-hour zone, and he's doing 30. And I start to lose it. My daughter's in the back seat. She's seeing everything. I'm like, let's go. The New Yorker comes out real quick.
Yeah.
And I just looked back. She laughed. She said something that just broke me from the focus. And I just started to laugh, and I kind of took my foot off the gas. I was kind of riding all up in his ass, and I just kind of took my foot off the gas. I sat back and I went, "You're right, Harmony. What's the rush? We're right around the corner from our house. We're going to make a right here." And I just took a deep breath and wound up being my neighbor of all people. But
oh, wow.
Anyway. So we have that beautiful gift. We have our app. I feel like I need to come back and we need to do this again so that we can talk more.
I know. It was so good. So, okay. For those who definitely, so if they go to we'll put the link in the show notes, they can try the app, you said, for free.
90 days for free.
For 90 days free, guys.
I will ask you to put your credit card in, but we will not charge.
And then after that, it's only $8 a month.
It's $8 a month,
guys. Literally, so what I do now is I'll go on YouTube for sound stuff, because I do meditate, but sometimes I just want to listen to, just have it in the background. Especially, is there stuff for when people sleep?
So all of our stuff is good. Now, The longest track that I have is 2 hours. My director of harmonics actually just came on board. He just started full time January 1st. His name is Anthony Weiss. He's a 23-year musician. He makes and records all of the music, all of the frequencies, all of the research we do hand in hand together. He's a brother, and he's absolutely incredible. He just came on board full time, and we're going to start to do longer tracks. I actually, and he's gonna hear this and freak out because I know how much time it takes to make these tracks, but I really want a 10-hour track.
Well, because they're really great, right? Could you speak really quickly about like how listening to certain beats at like over like while you're sleeping can potentially could be this is what I've heard, it affects your subconscious and like those patterns.
All of it. Like we need to come back and have another conversation. Like we can schedule this before we go, but like we need to come back and talk about brainwaves and impact and what sound and frequency does. But the brain basically has 6 main brainwave states, and listening to music drops you into a theta brainwave state. This is where you are during REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. It's where we are when we dream. It's where rejuvenation happens. It's where meditation is kind of that target brainwave state. And listening to music and frequency, your brain drops into that theta brainwave state. It actually harmonizes just about your entire brain into a theta brainwave state. It's really quite beautiful. And if you have trouble napping, or if you have trouble sleeping, particularly if you have trouble falling asleep, or if you have trouble staying asleep, not counting cats, dogs, and you know,
husbands that are on CPAP machines. I get a lot of clients with that.
Yeah, look, and that's a thing, right? Look, we won't get into the personal side of my life, but nonetheless, like that's right. Like just if you just have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, my daughter sleeps 12 hours a night. She's almost 3. She sleeps 12 hours a night. She has a speaker in her room, and I stream off of YouTube because I don't have the track yet, a 10-hour, 432 hertz deep sleep track. Yeah. This is the kind of music that we have in there. It's not a lot of words. It's not upbeat. It's not fast. It's simply designed to entrain your brain into a parasympathetic nervous system response and to calm and slow you down. It's not great to listen to while you're driving a car, but it is great to listen to in the sound system of your car. If you just have our app, use a pair of AirPods, or better yet, take a Bluetooth speaker and just put it on your chest and feel the vibrations from a Bluetooth speaker. And if you have the means and you can invest in a cushion or an InHarmony practitioner or a sound lounge, I highly recommend that you do that too.
Amazing. Okay, cool. So really quickly, where can people find you, more information about that? Just share.
We're on the web. The link below will get you to our website. IamInHarmony.com/pages/tips with Tony. You can find us on all the socials: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, InHarmony Interactive at InHarmony Interactive. I think on Twitter, it's IAM_InHarmony. And super excited. I run all of our socials. I'm the guy that's answering the messages. I'm the guy that's running the comments. It's really where I want to be in our business and what we do. And I love connecting with people. I love answering questions. I love helping and supporting and having greater impact. And I super, super appreciate our connection. And I'm super grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
So happy that you were here. Thank you so much for coming on. For those listening, make sure you go and give Craig a follow. Definitely download the app. That's a legit steal. So much great content in there. If you guys have any questions, you can reach out to him, like you said, on Instagram. You can reach out to me on Instagram at tips_with_Tony with an I. And that is it from us today. Thank you so much for listening. As always, I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.